Hello aviators, Sky here, and today we have a short journey that immediately makes us ask questions. Why, what for, and what motivates such people? Welcome to the flight DP91, Moscow, Moscow. I was lucky with the airport. Our today's carrier, Pobeda Airlines, is based in Vnukovo, and I live in this direction, so it takes about 40 minutes by taxi. And so, we arrive at the Vnukovo International Airport. In fact, it is the destination of our flight, so the job is done. Like and subscribe to the channel, fast flights and... Oh, right, we didn't have a flight yet. Okay, we're entering Terminal A, a huge space under a huge dome and a realm of complex metal supporting structures. If the Eiffel Tower was a Russian airport, it would be Vnukovo Airport. Of course, you have to put on the main accessory of 2020, this damn mask. Everyone used to laugh that Tom Hardy has something on his face in half of his movies, and now we're all cosplaying him. And you will have to wear it all the time, here and on the plane. But unless you want to be thrown out, sorry, the rules are rules. The rules apply to everything else, so despite the unusual nature of our today's flight, all the procedures here are standard. Check-in, security screening, and all that. From the outside, it is a normal domestic flight. Except when passengers of other flights approached us with the question, "Where are you flying?" and heard the answer, "Here," their eyes were full of confusion. Indeed, our answer was not entirely correct. We departed from the departure area of Terminal A while arriving in the arrivals area of Terminal A, and that's on another floor. While we are walking around the waiting area, waiting for boarding, we can speculate a little about the very concept of such flights to nowhere. Flights to nowhere sounds kind of ominous, but in reality they are a kind of circular flights with a return to the point of departure, like tours on commercial airliners. They didn't appear yesterday, of course, but gained particular popularity in 2020, when due to the quarantine closure of the borders, the opportunities to fly somewhere were severely cut off. On the one hand, it hit the airline industry, which got plunged into one of the most severe crises in its history. Thousands of planes around the world have been nailed to the ground, and their owners and operators are now trying to figure out what to do with tens of billions of dollars worth of assets that have been frozen but still need to be serviced. The plane is not grandfather's car. It cannot be simply parked around the corner until better times. On the other hand, the travelers themselves were isolated from the sky. This, of course, is not so critical, especially for people who, in the midst of the pandemic, could not even leave their homes. But nevertheless, the desire to escape somewhere on vacation did not disappear, and many people perceive the flight on a plane as part of this vacation. And this is not counting the frequent flyers, who, for the purpose of travel or work, for many years have been accustomed to the fact that once or twice a month they must jump on a plane and enjoy the flights. It was then that airlines and passengers found each other. It is not really possible to fly to distant countries, but technically it is still possible to fly. Passengers get the opportunity to spend time above the clouds, and operators get some additional traffic and income. Normally, this would be considered a drop in the ocean, but special times require special solutions. Moreover, there is clearly a demand. For example, tickets for both Pobeda flights, one of which I got on, were sold out in just minutes. This type of travel has become popular in the Asia-Pacific region, where several fairly large airlines, such as EVA Air or Qantas, began offering flights to nowhere. And the flights are quite decent, both in terms of aircraft size and duration. Qantas, for example, offers a 7-hour-long flight over the Australian coast on a Boeing 787. The guys from Singapore Airlines took an even more exotic path, managing to arrange such tours without even lifting the planes into the sky. This is, however, the result of not so much the cunning of aviators as the demands of environmental activists, who decided that burning hundreds of tons of kerosene just like that is a bit too much. Greta Thunberg has defeated the 777. The topic of flying to nowhere continues to cause a lot of controversy, and the criticism is understandable. On the other hand, it comes from the people who are not particularly associated with aviation, and are seeing all this as some strange parties of the fans of helms and ailerons. I could agree with them, but since I am myself a fan of helms and ailerons, I will say that after all, football from the side is a million people shouting and waving their hands, watching a couple of dozen guys run after a ball for an hour and a half. Cinema is when hundreds of people lock themselves into a dark room, groan and gasp, staring at the flickering wall for hours. What kind of cyberpunk nonsense is this? Not to mention people who spend a whole year saving money in order to lie down on silica deposits for a couple of weeks and receive a dose of radiation. From the point of view of absolute logic, this is absurd, but from the point of view of people with their hobbies and emotions, this is relaxation and entertainment. And we are still people, at least for now. While I was justifying my sky craziness, the buses took us to the plane. Our today's transport, the Boeing 737-800 with tail number VP-BQQ, is brand new. It is not even 2 years old. The fleet of Pobeda Airlines is generally very simple. It is all made up of airliners of the same model, a nuance of the low-cost airline business. I won't be describing the design, the video isn't really about that, and our aircraft is one of the most widespread and classic. The good old CFM56. The squat tricycle landing gear. Thanks to this flight, I got to walk around the aircraft a lot. And of course the nose that cannot be confused with anything. You can note the double wingtips, which are originally called split scimitar winglets. Similar and more progressive winglets can be seen on the 737 MAX generation wing, but there they look a bit more rough, and here it is a neat wave. Beautiful. Finally, we go into the cabin. The layout is single class, quite dense, 32 rows in a 3+3 scheme. The already familiar sky interior design with enlarged luggage racks, bright finishing and lights shining in all colors. My seat, number 15D, is almost in the middle of the cabin, near the leading edge of the wing. This place has its own nuances. The 737-800 airliners are equipped with pairs of emergency exits to the wing, and one of these exits is exactly in my row. For a quick evacuation, there is a widened passage here, so I have more legroom than in the other rows. But at the same time, a flight attendant immediately approached me and my neighbors with instructions in case this door was urgently needed. The crew of our aircraft is golden, made up of people whose names are already familiar to many aviators in Russia. Dmitry Kopasov and Olesya Shilaeva in the cockpit make sure that our bird shows beautiful performance in the sky. And of course Alexei Kochemasov. One of the most venerable pilots and popularizers of aviation isn't flying today, but performs as a guide, host, and a walking aviation encyclopedia. He is in fact the mastermind of this flight at Pobeda and is responsible for all the coolness happening in the cabin. And of course flight attendants. Without flight attendants, passenger aviation would be just airplanes with seats inside. No matter how special our flight is, as I already said, the rules are rules.
Доброе утро, дамы и господа. Меня зовут Полина Сычева, я старший бортпроводник и амбассадор нашей авиакомпании. Я рада приветствовать вас сегодня на самом необычном рейсе 2020 года. Я хочу вам напомнить о том, что несмотря на то, что этот рейс сегодня необычный, мы с вами все равно обязательно должны оставаться в масках. А сегодня в салоне для вас будут работать мои очаровательные бортпроводники. Это Диана, Кристина и Злата. Они находятся сейчас в хвостовой части.
At the initial stage before departure, my favorite part of the flight was carried out, the pre-flight safety demonstration. The advantage of our flight was that I could safely shoot the flight attendants on camera without their sterny prohibitive gazes, so I sat right in the aisle and fought with autofocus. To bring Sky on one knee, it is enough to be a flight attendant and conduct a demonstration of rescue equipment on board the aircraft. Just like that. In case news stories won't be coming out for a long time, don't worry. Most likely my girlfriend saw this video and now I'm dead. While the plane was preparing for takeoff, the aviation lectures continued. What are the numbers written at the ends of runways? How is the energy distributed between the parts of the power plant? And many other interesting aviation facts. Then we were told about various pre-flight procedures, system checks, engine startups, and in our winter conditions, the work of the aircraft de-icing services. The de-icing was quick and successful, but the liquid that is applied to the airliner remains on it for some time, so we have a side effect: stained windows. By the way, after landing, I took a short walk around the wing, the mechanization of which was not retracted. As it turned out, this was done not because the crew was too lazy to pull a couple of levers, but for safety reasons. When landing, ice can appear on the released surfaces, and on retraction it can be pulled into the wing, and there's a lot of equipment inside that can be damaged. So aviators prefer to first check everything on the ground, and only then hide all this beauty. Okay, enough talk, it's time to fly into the sky. Yes, interesting fact about our captain. Dmitry Kopasov used to be a Russian Air Force pilot, one of the members of the Swifts or Strizhi aerobatic team, flying on the MiG-29. Yes, he knows how to make the flight more awesome, within the flight rules of course.
Начинаем разбег, двигатели взлетный режим, поехали. Отрыв. Шасси убираем. И набор высоты. И вот чувствуется, что пилотирует подполковник Копасов.
So, even though our flight is called an honorable circle around Moscow, it cuts a much wider circle. The plane flies northwest, turns near Tver, skirting around the regions of Yaroslavl and Ivanovo in the east, flies around Vladimir, and turns west again towards Moscow, exactly to the Vnukovo airport from where it took off. The weather was not very good. The clouds remained rather dense and low, but this is a plus of aviation. Up above, it is always clear and sunny, at least during the day. While our bird was drawing simple geometric shapes over the country, various activities were happening inside. Flights to nowhere are tours for those who like to fly, so a simple 2 hours sitting in a chair and staring at a phone was not enough. The most fun was the giveaway of prizes from the airline, the team of Sky Crazy and their partners, plus a couple of birthdays. Finally, it was time to return, and the airliner began to descend. A feature of this descent was the work of computers. The plane had to land in fully automatic mode in low cloud conditions. Well, not really a feature. In our time, fairly modern airliners easily perform such operations, provided that they are also accepted by a fairly well-equipped airport. And we have a 1.5-year-old 737 and one of the main airports in Russia. By the way, only pilots can distinguish an automatic landing from a manually controlled one. For passengers, it is just a landing. Landing that we interrupted and went to the second cycle. Aha, so much for automation, you might say in the comments. But apparently, we went to the second round at the request of the air traffic control. The runway on which our board was supposed to land was occupied. I guess the plane that landed in front of us didn't have time to leave it. The second attempt ended with a successful landing. The plane taxied to the parking lot and froze in its place, preparing to get rid of the crowd of passengers. And it really was a crowd. I decided to wait until the cabin was empty. People were going out through the front door and were going out for a very long time, despite the fact that I was sitting in the middle. The case when aircraft schemes like these appear in my head. But the people eventually unloaded, and we had the chance to finally see the entire crew of the airliner in full force, chat, and of course take pictures.
Всем большое спасибо! Со всеми до новых встреч! Спасибо!
I don't know if our flight can be called a standard representative of a new type of travel, but if they are all like that, then I am in favor of it with both hands. great tour. This time there were only 2 of them, on December 19th and 20th, but if the experience is seen as successful, there is a risk that Alexei Kochemasov and his colleagues will have more work. And for today, I think we can complete our journey. Many thanks to the crew of the plane, the team of the Sky Crazy podcast, and all the participants of this interesting adventure. And you, aviation fans, like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, enjoy every flight, fast and with a soft landing.
Ну что ж, прибыли мы с вами в Вnukovo. Как наш рейс окончен, спасибо, что воспользовались нашей авиакомпании. Поблагодарите наших девочек, они сегодня старались для вас, и попрощайтесь с вами. Желаю вам всего самого доброго, счастья, здоровья, любви, удачи, денег побольше.